Hello there. My name is Alicia, aka Edmiston Creations, and I am a wife, mom, social worker, and athlete living in the mountains of South Central New Mexico. And this is a space where I like to share a bit about the things that I have been making, mostly knitting and sewing projects, but I also like to share some of the things that I've been up to, maybe working out, or some of the things that I've been doing with my family, as well as I'm a licensed clinical social worker and I enjoy sharing general health and wellness tips that you can maybe try out and apply to either your making process or your day-to-day life. So if any of that sounds of interest to you, then please take the time to subscribe to my channel, and that way you don't miss out on any future content. So, hello, I'm back again, and this episode is going to be all about flock in a way. That's the underlying theme. I want to talk about the Albina sweater, which I'm wearing, and the Skyline dress, which I have sewn twice now by Sydney Graham. And I have plans to sew another. Actually, I'm washing my fabric right now for the third one, so I'm really excited to get that one on my sewing machine. I can't wait to see that vision come to life. But I want to talk about those makes because they have a connection to flock, and then I want to answer the questions that I got about flock, and I want to say a big thank you to the people that did ask questions. I got a few, and so we're gonna talk about those after we get into the makes. So first I'm going to give a little bit of an update, just a brief one. There's not really any major updates on our home or us being able to move back home. Everything is pretty much status quo. We are waiting for our contractor to be able to get over to our house and start working to seal up the lingering smell that is still happening in our house from the smoke damage from the Salt and South Fork fires that came through Ruidoso June 17th. And so in the meantime, we're in this rental, and the kids have started school and they're adjusting really well to school. Howie had a bit of a hard time at first. He missed when he realized mommy wasn't staying all day at school. It was a little bit of a problem. But he really loves going to school now, and he happily, goes off with his teacher and stuff. So it's really cute. So they're both doing well in school, but we're still having flash flooding issues here. I think last week, honestly, because of all the rain we got, and it wasn't even like tons and tons of rain. It would just be, we would get a regular rainy day, basically. The kids would get out of school early. I think last week only one day they went to school a full day. So in spite of that, the kids are still doing well too. My kids are young enough where they're disappointed if they get out of school early. They really want to go the full day. So I'm really proud of them for doing as well as they have with just the adjustment. I mean, and we can't predict the weather, so they're doing a good job, being excited about school and learning all they can. And if either I come pick them up early or the schools issue an early dismissal, they're handling that as well as they can. So all in all, no complaints. We're doing well, trucking right along. And so I wanted to get back on and record another podcast. So here we are. So let's talk about the Albina sweater and Skyline dress by the Albina sweater is by Caitlin Hunter, and that's what I'm wearing. And then the Skyline dress I also have on, and I will stand up in a minute so you can see my full outfit, but I also have one hanging up back here, and that is by Sydney Graham. So let's talk about the Albina sweater first. So this is knit in Undine DK, and I did knit mine in the same yarn that Caitlin used for hers. I had been wanting to use Undine, and Undine is a base by Ritual Dyes. I had been wanting to use this yarn for a couple of years now, and I just hadn't gotten around to a project that used it, and the Albina sweater was just such a fantastic opportunity to finally use Undine. And Undine DK is actually a new base to their Undine line. They've had the Undine fingering weight out for a couple years that I've wanted to try. So I was so happy to be able to use it finally. And these are the colors that I use in the cakes. I used Prairie Flax is the one on top, this beautiful like dusty blue, and then New Growth is the nice lime color. And I swear that lime is like my color this summer. I have been all about some lime. So I knew these were the two I wanted to pair together, and I just love how it turned out. Let's see. So it is 60/40 organic cotton and linen, 273 yards per 100 grams. So that's kind of the info on the yarn itself. And as you can see, just from these cakes, like I had quite a bit left over from my sweater. So I'm gonna get creative and figure out another project I could make with this. I think probably a tee or a summer tank would be great, just because it's cotton linen and it's so breathable. So it's good for like transition wear, or also the summer time, you know, whenever you want to wear something knitted but not wool per se. So anyway, I made Albina along with Caroline, and her handle on Instagram is Pacific Coast Knitter, and we knit this together in the summer. It was probably June, like late June, whenever I casted this on. We talked on the phone after I was evacuated from town with the wildfire, and Caroline mentioned she was gonna make the Albina sweater for the Undine make along, and asked me if I wanted to join her. And I just thought, oh my gosh, what a great opportunity. I would love to. And she immediately offered to buy the yarn for me, so I didn't have to stress about being able to have the yarn to make the sweater after being evacuated from town. And at that point, I wasn't really sure what the condition of our house was. I did know, well, no, that's not true. I think the first time I spoke to her, we weren't sure if our house had made it or not yet. The second time we spoke on the phone, I had confirmation that our house was still standing, but we just didn't know the condition and if it was livable. So she was so kind to, I mean, like, it was an immediate, like, let me just do this for you and let's make it together, and then we could twin at Flock. And I thought, just all the stars aligned, and I just thought, what a perfect opportunity to knit the sweater, and what great meaning to have connected with every stitch in this garment. You know, friendship, Flock, Undine, a yarn base that I had been wanting to try, and it's a fun striped sweater, and I love stripes. So, I mean, what was there to say no to? I mean, it was really a very, very welcome comfort at the time. We were able to wear these together at Flock, and I was so happy to be able to do so. We spent the day together. Friday going to Bainbridge Island and visiting the local yarn shops there, the Lamb and Kid and La Mercerie, and then we ate at this awesome pizza joint, and Caroline's friends all joined us, and like it was just a magical day. But I will say Friday of the weekend at Flock was definitely the hottest day. I think it got up to the mid 80s or so that day. And so wearing Albina and over my Skyline dress was really the perfect outfit, because in the morning, when we got breakfast and we were in the shade, it was nice to have this on and keep off the cold but not be too hot. But then, you know, as it warmed up, we could take our sweaters off. I mean, I threw this sweater in my knitting bag and packed it around with me. And even doing that, when I took it out to put it back on when we were on the ferry, because it was cold from the wind on the ferry, the sweater looked great. It wasn't wrinkled or crinkled from being in my bag. And I will say, I did not take the time to like fold my sweater up nicely per se and put it in my bag so it wouldn't be wrinkled. Like I wasn't doing anything to like actively prevent wrinkling of the garment. I just think that that's a testament to the fabric and the yarn itself. Like the cotton and linen just stay nice like this. I mean, it's awesome. I really love it. I can't say enough good things about the yarn. And it really was the perfect sweater to wear that day, because on the ferry we could wear it, we could take it off while we were walking around Bainbridge, and then we could throw our sweaters back on whenever we were back on the ferry to go over to the mainland again. So overall, magical day on Friday in the fun twinning sweaters. Let's see, what else can I say about this? This is a very straightforward pattern, bottom up. I think Caitlin did a great job making the pattern straightforward but not overcomplicated. I used the recommended needles for it. I think that this would be a really fun sweater. If I was gonna make another one, which I do want to, I think it would be fun to do like a neutral color, like either like a beige, or I'd have to look and see what other colors. All of the colors in Undine DK are so beautiful. Ritual Dyes really does a nice job. But I'd like to do like another one with the main color in Undine DK, but then use scraps for stripes when I have enough DK scraps, since I'm kind of cut off from my stash. But that would be a really fun option, is to have like a main color and then just do scrappy DK weight stripes to use up some stash yarn. I just think it would be a fun project. But anyway, so that's all I have to say about Albina. 10 out of 10 highly recommend this sweater. It's a fantastic pattern. So I wore this dress. Let's talk a little bit about the my sewing section of the podcast is going to be all about the Skyline dress today. So I am going to stand, and you know, I don't have the technical capabilities quite yet to be able to pop up a video, you know, a picture of me in my full-length outfit. So here we go. So this is the Skyline dress by Sydney Graham. I actually have layered over the Skyline dress my wave float top by Matchy Matchy Sewing Club. This is in the color lime, Cairo Linen from Ewe Fibers. It's a cute little ruffle top. I will take off the Albina in a bit so you can see what it looks like layered with this, but I kind of had, I don't know, it popped in my head this would be a fun, cute little layered outfit, and I think it turned out pretty fun. The little pop of yellow or lime, it's kind of, yeah, I mean, this lime linen is really interesting because you can push it to be more yellow or push it to be more green. It's a really fun in between. So, you know, wearing it with my sweater, it really pulls the lime out, and you got that nice little pop of lime around the neck, and then the little ruffles sticking out at the bottom. I really like that. But yeah, no, so this is the Skyline Dress by Cindy Graham. It has inseam pockets. It is a little sundress. This is the second one that I made. This is a patchwork version. So I sewed this gray version in the color nickel Sahara Linen from Ewe Fibers. So the Sahara Linen family is a little bit of a lighter weight linen than Cairo. It's about an ounce lighter weight than the Cairo linen. And this linen is really, really great for this pattern. So I love the weight of this because it's just very light and flowy. So I sewed this one literally just a few days before I went to go to flock. So it kind of bookended my trip, this particular pattern, because I sewed this one before I left, and then immediately when I finished, I had the idea to sew a brown and blue one together. I had 2 yards of this toffee colored Cairo linen, and I had about a yard of this icy blue linen left over from my shade dress that I sewed. And so I just thought, like, it just immediately popped into my head, how fun would that be if I sewed another Skyline and I put these 2 colors together in some way. And I just love how it turned out. I also did, along with the patchwork, I did the hack to put the bow for the straps in the front of the bodice. The one that I'm wearing and the standard set pattern, the bow is in the back on your shoulder. And I just, it was a lot of fun. Sydney has, I will say, to give her a plug for sure, I watched her YouTube channel. She's got a lot of really great tutorials. So she had some tutorials for patchwork, for a patchwork Skyline, and she also had a tutorial for this hack to put the bow in the front, and it was really helpful. It just demystified everything and you know, kind of gave you the confidence that you could figure it out yourself. So I love this dress. It's one of my favorites I've made so far, and yeah, I can't wait. I've already worn it a lot, and I cannot wait to sew my next one that I have ideas for. So I do want to take Albina off so you can see this layered. And apologies, because I'm going to try not to pull out my headphones. One of these days I'm going to get better with technology. But yeah, so you can see Skyline layered with the wave float top. And what that looks like, it's just a nice, like, flowy little outfit. And great for, like, summer/fall weather. We're in this really nice transition from summer to fall weather where it's chilly in the mornings. I mean, it's been in the 40s the last several mornings, but it still will get up to like upper 60s, mid to low 70s during the day, so it's nice. So layering is definitely a key thing, like wearing my Albina sweater for the mornings and the evenings makes a perfect outfit. And even sitting out here now, like with the Albina on, it wasn't like overly hot or anything. So yeah, if you want to see any pictures of me in the Skyline dress styled, I definitely recommend you check out my Instagram feed at Edmiston Creations. I have photos of it styled by itself whenever I first made each one of these, both the gray and the patchwork, but then I also show it the patchwork version styled for the fall with my shift again. And I really think that it's a fun thing to do with your me-made wardrobe, as to, you know, start your layering game and playing around with what pieces maybe go together or not. And I mean, I must say the wave float top layered over Skyline and Albina layered over my wave float top was a pretty unexpected layering option, and but it worked out. I mean, at least I like it. I mean, I don't know if anybody else will like it, but that's okay. Really, all that matters is that you like what you're wearing and you feel good in it. That's the whole thing with me-made wardrobe, and having a mindful relationship with your wardrobe and the pieces that you make and wear. So yeah, I highly recommend both of those patterns, knitting and sewing. So please let me know if you have any further questions about either of those makes in the comments. So let's move on to the flock fiber questions. So I will say, first, thank you to the people that just simply commented, like, I was at Flock and I'm so, you know, it was nice to meet you, or, you know, I'm glad you liked Seattle, and it was a great event. So just a lot of really, you know, uplifting comments about attending Flock, and that, you know, you were glad that I had a good time and things like that. So much appreciated for those comments. I only got a few questions, and honestly, that's why I'm glad that I asked for your direct feedback about what you wanted to hear about, because what I did not want to do was spend time just talking about Flock Fiber Festival and say all the things that I thought were important. You know, not that that doesn't matter, but I don't want to sit and like gab about things that you're not really interested in hearing. So, you know, this was a way for me to really hone in on what you want to hear about specifically. And so I very much appreciate you asking. And since there wasn't a ton of questions, like, you know, that's okay. Like, maybe we won't have a whole lot to say, or there won't be a ton of time taken for this. So the first two questions are actually pretty similar, so I want to read them both, or I'm going to kind of paraphrase both of them and then answer both of them at the same time. So the first one was really someone who wanted to know, what's your strategy at fiber festivals for taking it all in but not going nuts and overbuying whenever you're faced with such beautiful yarn? And then the second one was, I've never attended a fiber festival, but I can get really overwhelmed and overstimulated by choices and like large crowds of people. So do you recommend having a focus of what to buy whenever you're going to a fiber festival, or to find something special while you're there, like that inspires future making? So you know, they're similar, and I wanted to answer both of them at the same time. So here we go. I'm gonna try not to talk forever because I feel like I could do that. So my strategy at a fiber fest, and I will not, first off, let me just say, I am not a fiber festival like guru or anything. Flock was my first bigger fiber festival that I attended. I have gone to the Santa Fe Wool Festival in early October the last couple of years, and that's a much smaller event in the scheme of things. You know, it's like a little mini Rhinebeck with all the animals and sheep shearing and contests and you know, of course, vendors and all things fiber. And it's a wonderful event. It used to be in Taos, and they moved it to the Santa Fe Fair. They moved it within the last couple of years or so to the Santa Fe Fairgrounds. And I think that that was more of an accessibility thing, you know, just to try to make it easier for people to get to, and all of that. And its official name is the Mountain and Valley Wool Festival. I call it the Santa Fe Wool Festival just because it's shorter, but it's the Mountain and Valley Wool Festival. And I have attended that with my friend Chelsea from Santa Fe, and so this strategy I totally stole from her, but you take a lap first and you take in everything from that you see with the vendors and make notes of things you like, and then that way you can weigh in what you really want to spend your money on, and not blow your whole budget like in the first booth that you drop by. And I just think that that is such a helpful strategy. I definitely employed that at Flock, and that really helped a lot because there were so many vendors to see. And it was nice that that Flock was in a convention center, because I mean, it was a beautiful convention center too, but you just had easy access to bathrooms, places to sit and knit. Snacks were easily accessible with the food vendors they had there, and then you could walk out of the convention center and go to any number of restaurants that were right around that immediate area and downtown. So, you know, all of those things I really liked. But anyway, that said, coming back to that strategy of take a lap first, walk around, see what there is to see, super, super, super helpful, especially when you have a budget that you want to stick to. And I didn't necessarily have a dollar amount budget, but I went into the festival with a plan. So that is kind of the dipping into the second part of this question, which was, do you go with a focused plan of like specific things you want to buy, or like you're flexible and inspired by what you see while you're there? I honestly went with a specific plan. I knew I wanted to find not a pair of socks, a skein of sock yarn that was dyed specifically for Flock, you know, like a specific colorway for the event, to make a pair of socks, not to buy a pair of socks. Past self would have said to buy a pair of socks, even when I was knitting, but just within the last year or so, I have really become a sock knitter, and I love sock knitting, so I want to make my own socks now. So I do look for the sock yarn. So I just thought that would be fun, and to find a special colorway and a low investment thing, because it's only one skein of yarn instead of like a really big project. So I had that in mind, and I wanted to look for some cool notions, because I mean, let's face it, like most of us have yarn or stuff to knit with. And I mean, at least where I was coming from going into Flock, I had test knits that were coming up against deadlines, not super close, but like I had projects on my needles that needed my attention. So I wasn't really in a space where I needed yarn to like make more things, because my needles were full, so to speak. So I wanted to look for some nice notions while I was there. So I had this plan of like specific items, and then honestly, I wasn't planning on it, but I guess in hindsight, I should have expected that inspiration was totally gonna strike walking around all of those beautiful booths. each of the vendors did a great job of just styling their booth and making it very inviting, showing off their products and projects, because a lot of the booths had samples of things made in their yarns. And the samples were really great, and caught my attention, and inspired me to buy for the specific sample project that I saw. That was unexpected for me, but welcomed, and I was happy about that. And also, I really enjoyed the doodle bar, like the doodle decks, to be able to make cowl scarves, and colorwork sweaters. I thought that, she has the doodle card decks. Those were really cool and interesting, and all the minis that you could buy to kind of with different colorways to have the vibe you wanted with your doodle decks. I just thought like everything was so well done walking around. So inspiration definitely struck, and it hit me walking around there. I wanted to make a sideline wrap by Brianne Moody. So me and my sister-in-law and Caroline, we all went over to the Farmer's Daughter Fibers booth and picked out yarn. We picked out a Sue copy and a dyed in the wool to make a sideline wrap by Brianne Moody together as a knit along, to commemorate Flock. So I didn't need to do that with the projects I had on my needles, but again, inspiration struck and we all did that, and that was and it was really great. I knit on the sideline wrap on the plane and as my travel project basically home, but then I promptly finished my test knits up, and I will be picking my sideline wrap back up now, as my travel project, carry around, walk and knit sort of thing, to finish up. And it still has all those wonderful memories of Flock wrapped up in it. So, for that, I'm really grateful. I am definitely somebody who, when I pick out fibers, whether it's fabric or yarn or colors in those mediums, there's a lot of meaning that I connect to within each of those things. And I remember that whenever I am making the garment, or hair accessory with the sideline wrap, or whatever the item is. Most of the time I make garments, let's be honest, I tend to gravitate towards always knitting sweaters, or I sew clothes. So it is what it is. That's just where my heart goes. But I have memories that are wrapped up in my projects, based on like the moment that I bought it, like the things that, the color reminds me of, or maybe that base and from that specific maker. I have a relationship with them, and like there's that's connected to it and all of that. So yeah, let inspiration strike. But it's probably good to be aware, now that I've gone and I've experienced that, I think it's really great to be aware, like going into a fiber festival, that like you can have a plan, but you also want to leave like maybe a contingency budget, kind of like the Property Brothers do for, like you can have option A or option B, and they always have a contingency budget within, their plans of option A or option B, for barriers or hurdles that come up in the project of remodeling somebody's house. So maybe you want to approach the fiber festival kind of like that, like have a contingency budget of X amount or a percentage even of what you plan to buy, because you're probably going to end up being inspired or buying something unexpected, or spending more money in general than you had originally cut, out or planned on spending. So a contingency budget's a good idea for those inspiring moments that just kind of happened. Let's see. The other thing I was gonna say of like, so how do I not go nuts like over all the beautiful yarn and basically like all the beautiful products that were there, because they had homemade soaps. The jewelry that I'm wearing is Reiko beaded jewelry, and so I'm gonna come close so you can see they're so cute. These little lemon slices and this beautiful beaded choker necklace. This is probably my favorite section with the little like kind of quilted beaded thing. So anyway, she had her beaded jewelry there, and I will put the name of Reiko Jewelry if you want to look it up. She's on Instagram, and I'm sure if you Google her that you could find her website or Etsy shop, or you know, however to get to her products to buy some if you're interested. She was an unexpected maker there that I ended up falling in love with her jewelry, and I ended up buying some. So again, wasn't planning on buying beaded jewelry, but hey, when in Rome. I love them, and I wear them so much that it's really brought me a lot of joy. So yeah, so anyway, like all that said, come back, land the plane, Alicia. What do you do when you're faced with such beautiful yarn or unexpected beautiful things? One, I think I just let myself go nuts. Like I mean, and not go nuts in the sense of like buying all the things, but I let myself go nuts, like enjoy it. Like, oh my gosh, look how beautiful that is, and oh my gosh, look how beautiful, it's all so pretty. Like I just let myself really feel all of that. But I recognize I can feel really excited, but yet stay separate from that excitement, and recognize that just because I feel excited and oh my gosh, it's so pretty, and oh, I love that, I separate that out from I have to buy that. Do you see it? Like, so like that's a very important distinction to make. Like, and it actually makes the event, or for me, it made the event just a lot of fun, because I let myself just go, oh my God, it's so pretty, and just go crazy over the beautiful stuff that I saw. But I didn't break the bank because I didn't feel this pull. I made sure that I was telling myself, like, you know, yes, it is very pretty, but that is very different and is not the same meaning as I need to buy it or it needs to be mine. The only, you know, time that I chose to buy things was if it was something that I like, you know, the jewelry was, I knew I would wear it and love it. The yarn and or fabric that I bought, and I bought fabric at different locations, not at Flock, but those items that I bought, it was for specific projects. I made sure that I was buying for specific things and not just things that would sit and wait for inspiration to strike. So I made sure that they were, you know, very intentional purchases, and that helps too. So I think that that's really, I probably could keep talking, but I think that really kind of answers those couple questions. The second part of this, I got a question about social anxiety. And so I do want to address that as a licensed clinical social worker. First off, I want to say that social anxiety is, you know, is serious. It is sometimes very debilitating, and it exists on a spectrum. You know, there is, you know, if you imagine a 0 to a 10, you know, social anxiety can show up sometimes as a 1, 2, 3, or I mean, it can be a 10 or even a 12 for some people. And so I don't want to minimize how intense social anxiety is for people. If you are someone who experiences social anxiety, then I highly encourage you to reach out to a professional. And, you know, if it is something that you want to work on to get personal support working through, or learning how to navigate in your very specific way, then I recommend you reach out to a professional for that. And you know, the information that I'm about to give comes from a professional, but it is in very general terms, and this is not addressing very debilitating social anxiety that prevents you to, say, maybe leave your house or to be around other people. That is something that needs to be specifically addressed on an individual level. You can find a professional in your area that maybe would suit your needs through psychologytoday.com and search. It's a very easy website. You can search based on your zip code, and I will put that information in the show notes as well if you are curious about finding someone to support you personally. So that said, a person asked me about suggestions on how to navigate social anxiety in general, because this person said that, you know, they were overstimulated and overwhelmed by large crowds of people and like having lots of choices of things to buy. So I want to speak to that specifically. So, you know, first off, I want to say that, you know, social anxiety shows up because when we go around a group of people, or a group of people we don't know, you know, a crowd that we can assume are strangers, that's a vulnerable position to put ourselves in. And when we feel vulnerable, we typically feel afraid. Anxiety is a form of fear. It's in the emotion family of fear. And so it's actually a normal experience to have, like when you put yourself in a vulnerable situation. My dog's popping up back there. Hey, buddy. Anyway, sorry. Squirrel. You know, whenever we put ourselves in a vulnerable situation, it's normal to feel afraid because we're in a position of, am I going to be seen? Are people going to like me? Are they going to accept me? And, you know, in the case of being around a crowd of people walking around a fiber festival, it's just, you know, it's people we don't know. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns, like, so how are those social interactions going to go? If there are any, is someone going to say hey to me? Is someone going to bump into me? There's kind of a noise or a buzz of all the chatter and like the talking, which that can be overwhelming for our senses and our hearing. So, you know, there's a lot that our mind and body is taking in this vulnerable situation. And ultimately, we want to feel safe as a human. And one of the things that happens in the background of our mind and our bodies on a daily basis is a thing called neuroception. So basically, neuroception is a very unconscious process. We do it all the time without realizing it, just like breathing. We constantly are scanning. Our mind and our body is constantly scanning the environment for cues that it's safe. And, you know, this skill set is really important to our survival, our literal survival, but also our, you know, our mind and body equates literal survival and emotional safety as almost the same thing. Our stress response can respond very much to emotional unsafety the exact same way that it would respond to literal life and death unsafety. And so now I'm wondering if unsafety is even a word. When you don't feel safe, basically. So, you know, they've done research where emotional pain is triggered in the brain the exact same way that physical pain is triggered in the brain. So, you know, they really do feel the same in the body. The sensations are the same. And so that's why, like, being around a crowd of people, when you start to feel anxious, and it, whenever this anxiety continues to escalate and maybe it crescendos into a panic attack. People that experience panic attacks often describe that they feel like they're going to die. Literally, they feel like they're having a heart attack. And it is because that emotional pain from anxiety somatically manifests itself physically in the body, and the body does not really have those cues to separate out that difference of, wow, like, I'm not literally dying. It is like, this is anxiety and panic. It feels like you are dying. Like, this is a life and death situation. What are you talking about? Like, this is scary stuff. I'm around a crowd of people. There's all these unknowns. What's going to happen? I can't control the situation and really know that I'm going to be safe. So all of that said, some things that you can do, I think, to navigate that, again, in general, is one, you really want to accept that feeling anxious around a crowd of people is okay, and it's a normal experience in a vulnerable situation. And it's vulnerable, like, you feel that it's vulnerable to be around a large crowd of people, and that is okay. In this, I mean, I understand that people want to maybe change that, but like, it is okay that that's happening, and I'm going to accept that that happens and allow that to be reality. I'm not going to try to resist reality. I'm instead going to lean into it and surrender to that experience. And surrender to it, meaning I'm leaning in really hard to not change it, because when we resist the fact that we feel anxious socially, we actually increase our anxiety that we feel socially, and we don't want to do that. The other thing that you can do is, once you accept, like, this is something that I experience. I mean, basically that's what we're doing, and accepting it and saying it's okay. It may not be okay in that I don't like it, but it happens. I can instead get curious about it, ask myself, like, well, what specifically makes me feel anxious going to a fiber festival or to a big event with a lot of people, and really get specific. List anything that comes up, and then ask yourself, after you've made your list and you're really clear on what makes you feel anxious or afraid about being around a large crowd of people, ask yourself to connect, like, we're trying to connect to our values. Ask yourself, why is it important to me to go to the fiber festival? And then get really clear on why it matters to you to go to a fiber event. And not just, I want to go, or it would be fun. I mean, get really granular. Try to answer that question like 4 iterations down your list. Get very, very specific, because since we're accepting we feel anxious and tense around crowds, and we're gonna let that tension be there, that means I really need to know why I'm allowing myself to feel uncomfortable whenever I do choose to go to a fiber event. So if I am gonna, if I'm gonna go, I am willingly accepting I will feel uncomfortable for some of the time. And the reality is, once you get there and you brush up against this discomfort of how social anxiety shows up for you, maybe I feel tightness in my chest, or, maybe my hands get clammy and things like that. Like, I may notice those things happening and like remind myself, like, well, the reason, yes, I am feeling anxious and I am uncomfortable, and that's okay. It's normal in a vulnerable situation, and I feel vulnerable around crowds. And this is why I'm choosing to actively move towards my value of why this is important to me. And that's why I'm choosing to get uncomfortable. Because from the acceptance and commitment therapy perspective, we act in service of our values, and we recognize that sometimes acting in service of our values requires us to get very uncomfortable or experience discomfort in life. And discomfort in life, which feeling anxious is uncomfortable, feeling discomfort in life is not necessarily pathologized or considered a problem. We change our relationship with that experience and give permission for it and connect to our value to act in service of that value, to live a meaningful life. So that's kind of like around the world there. The acceptance and commitment therapy sort of spiel for navigating anxiety. The other thing that you can do to support yourself while feeling uncomfortable, so this gets into a bit of distress tolerance skills, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, as well as, neuroception skills are recognized as part of polyvagal theory. So, when we're uncomfortable, we do need to comfort ourselves and just, help ourselves through that discomfort. And as I had said earlier, neuroception is something that happens unconsciously, typically, through our senses, and sends our body sends signals to our brain that it is safe. So we can actually nudge ourselves and consciously work on actively sending signals to our brain that we are safe through the use of neuroceptive objects, or sensory grounding objects. So hey, I'm a knitter and I can feel anxious sometimes, so I typically always have my knitting with me. And I will say, at Flock, I did walk around and knit some while I was there. But that's one thing that you can do, is have your knitting with you, or have a knitting project with you that's accessible. And maybe you don't want to knit and walk, but if you need a break, you can go out and find a quiet space to yourself and take some time to knit and breathe and soothe yourself and remind yourself, like, hey, it's okay, I'm in control, I can go and I can feel anxious and tense around these crowds, acting in service of my value blank. And then when I've had enough, I can take a break and remind myself that I am safe here and now, stitching, doing this. So that's one thing you can do. Knitting is a great thing for that. But also think like trinkets. Rocks, I'm a big fan of rocks, like as a grounding, safety orienting object, because they, you can hold them in your hand. Heck, you can walk around with a rock in your pocket, or a button if you're a maker. If you have some really cool buttons, maybe you have some of your grandmother's buttons that have meaning attached to them, or buttons that were gifted to you by someone. You could keep a button in your pocket and just hold that in your hand and remind yourself, as you're walking around the festival, that you are safe. And that object, feeling that object in your hand and it existing, helps you to know, like, that you're okay. The other great thing, if we're tapping into senses, essential oils are fantastic too. So if you like lavender, a citrus scent, eucalyptus, lemon, anything that, I love the smell of sage. Any kind of scent that is very calming, soothing, or grounding for you. You could put a little bit on your wrist here, or a little bit, here, and you'd be able to smell that scent, and that can be your safety orienting object, as you walk around. But you know, you can be creative. And I encourage clients all the time to be creative with what they use as a safety orienting object. I have worked with clients that get, you know, super anxious before like an annual employee review, rightfully so, you know, so we walk through that, and, you know, part of what we do is a safety orienting object that they could take with them in the interview that would be small and, like, you know, not anything that would distract from the meeting. But that also works well for interviews and things like that. And so, yeah, try it out and use different things too. So, you know, the world is your oyster, so to speak, whenever it comes to what you want to do as your safety orienting object to support your mind and body to recognize it is safe, even though it's feeling tense because of the crowds that you're around at a fiber event. So that is it for me today. You know, if you have any other questions, again, you know, I'm not going to typically speak at length about anxiety per se, or like other, you know, unless, you know, I get more specific questions about those things. I will say that I recommend, again, to reach out to a professional for support for your individual needs, because the things that I'm saying right now are very general, and you just, you know, not specific for what it may be that you're experiencing. So, but I do hope that they're helpful and that you can try them out and use those tools, if, you know, at your will, or let them go in one ear and out the other. If you already have strategies that work for you, then that's great. So there you go. Let's see. I'm trying to think. This weekend, I am going to Santa Fe to visit Osser, my favorite local yarn and fabric store. She's local for me in Santa Fe. It's in New Mexico, a 3-hour drive, but I'm totally excited to go. I'm gonna attend Maker's Circle and then shop over at Osser, and it's gonna be a really wonderful Saturday spent up there. Then I'll come home and hang out with my family. And Sunday, I don't know what we'll get into. Probably some playground time, working out, you know, who knows. But, you know, what do you have on tap this weekend? I'm curious to hear. And as always, just let me know if you have any specific questions. The best way to get in touch with me is to either comment on this video or send me a direct message on Instagram, and I will get back to you. So until next time, I really enjoyed speaking with you today. Happy mindful making.